Welcome to your daily dose of sci-fi adventures. New stories dropped every single day. Smash that subscribe button and ring the to help us reach 1,000 subscribers and unlock even more epic cosmic tales. Rourke Draven eased himself out of the command chair's worn cushion and stretched, the ancient foam sighing in relief. He gazed around the cavernous control room of the alien base's new home, if one could call it that. Walls of living coral-like material pulsed faintly in the dim red emergency lights, casting an almost heartbeat-like rhythm across consoles, entangled with silent vines of bioluminescent moss. In the stale, recycled air, he could almost taste the remnants of a civilization's final breaths. He wiped a smear of dust from the nearest console, revealing glyphs that shimmered like frozen currents of stardust. His heart thumped not with fear, but an unexpected thrill. It was the same rush he'd felt when diagnosing a craziest of the crazy power discharge on the Aegis-class cruisers decades ago. Only this time, he had no fleet orders, no anxious captain barking over comms. This project was all his. He ran a gloved hand along the organic textured wall, recalling the classified's blurb that had sealed the deal. Secluded archival base for sale, ideal for reclusive historians, artists, or those wishing final solitude. Self-sustaining bioreactors. Comes as is, zero maintenance guaranteed. No inspections, no refunds. He'd laughed when he read ideal for those wishing final solitude. A fancy way to say buy this place if you want to die alone. At the time, the thought had been a comfort. His body felt like scrap metal joints squeaking, spine stiff as a ruined hull girder. His wife, Mara, had been gone 2 years, stolen by a spacer's fever on a backwater station. His son, Jace, no longer returned his messages. The galaxy had moved on, leaving him in its wake. And yet, here he was, a retired mechanic armed with a toolbox and stubborn will, determined to reclaim purpose from oblivion. He pivoted to the main viewport, a jagged fracture in the cavern's rock that revealed the endless violet plains of Draction 9. Sky storms roiled beyond the horizon, violet lightning crackling through black clouds, thunder rolling like the drums of an angry god. The world had no atmosphere for settlers. Its magnetic anomalies made even satellites veer off course. Perfect place to vanish. With a hiss, the emergency lights clicked off, and the bioluminescent moss flared brighter, casting the room in cool blue-green light. Rourke thumbed a switch on his tool belt, charging a handheld scanner. The device chirped and blinked. The bioreactor's core had just 12% capacity, oxygen recycling at 35%, water filtration offline. It was, as advertised, abandoned and barely functional. He sighed. Time to wake the dead, he muttered. Awakening the Johnson entering the reactor chamber felt akin to stepping inside a living beast's ribcage. Myriad organic conduits snaked from a crystalline core, a giant hollow geoda throbbing with latent energy. The walls creaked and oozed moisture like perspiration. On the console beside the main access hatch, a small placard bore an inscription. In an elegant, looping script, Carinal Project, Pillar of Continuance. He traced the letters with a gloved fingertip. Continuance, survival. These aliens had been more than explorers, they were archivists of life itself. The project was designed to safeguard biospheres, to conserve worlds' genetic memories. The thought humbled him. Rourke set to work. First, he bypassed the dilapidated sediment filters using a jury-rigged splitter grafted from his own spares. Sparks danced as the filter motors whirred to life, pumping filtered water back into the life support matrix. Next, he turned to the oxygen synthesizers, rusted, clogged, armed with acid pills and a makeshift ultrasonic lance. He cleared the channels, over the howl of rejuvenating machinery. He felt a kinship with the baster relics of better days, struggling against entropy. Sweat beaded at his temples under the armored grips of his gloves. This wasn't like servicing a human reactor. The bioreactor's pulse fluctuated, responding to his calibrations. It exhaled a rhythmic thrum, as if groaning awake from an eon-long slumber. Rourke paused, hand hovering over the control panel, listening to the echo of his own pulse in the cables and conduits. Then, all at once, the glow stabilized. Lights in the chamber bloomed to life. Tiny motes of bioluminescent algae drifted through the air like snow and sunlight. Oxygen levels ticked upward, 45, 50, 60%. Water levels filled the reservoirs. The base exhaled freshness, the stale scent replaced by a subtle tang of organic renewal. Rourke grinned, grime streaking his weathered face. "Welcome back," he whispered, uncovering ghosts back in the central hub. Rourke traded the scanner for a holo-viewer, an ancient, portable projector. He activated a dusty console, and the air shimmered as three dimensional records sprang to life. Holo images of violet-skinned scientists drifted into view, their diaphanous robes swirling. One figure, a stern matriarch with crystalline implants, gestured to a spiraling galaxy projection. Drifting inscriptions in an unknown tongue scrolled across the viewer's rim. Rourke tweaked the translation module he'd jury-rigged. Watching the glyphs morph into common, this archive shall stand as testament to the convergence of life through blade and heart. Through word and wonder, our legacies shall endure. A chill ran up his spine. This was no mere shelter, it was a manifesto of hope. The aliens had invested their souls here, believing that even if they fled or perished, their essence would remain. He fastened diskettes into the holo-viewer's intake and labeled brittle. As they whirled, each projected a slice of Karanal. History, seed ships carrying sentient forests, engines powered by crystallized emotions, living walls that adapted to their inhabitants' needs. One disc showed the final days, a crisis so sudden that blinking stars dimmed in mourning. Visages froze mid-gesture as the projection stuttered and died. Rourke sat back, heart heavy. He remembered loss, not just his own, but the loss of entire worlds, entire cultures. He imagined the scientists' terror, their frantic efforts to safeguard the archive before the cataclysm. And he thought, "I'll finish the job," a spark of purpose for the next sun cycle. Rourke worked with the intensity of a man half his age. He rewired power grids, using repurposed starship capacitors to smooth out fluctuations. He cleared overgrown hydroponic bays, planting seeds of Earth's hardy allant root alongside alien spores he'd salvaged. He reconnected data nodes, letting the holo archives breathe life once more. At dusk, by his own improvised lumenscopes, the base's living walls glowed warmly. A chorus of soft hums echoed through the halls. In the mess hall, a table of smooth resin invited him to sit, the chairs molded around his form as he settled, the walls adjusting temperature to his comfort. For the first time in years, he felt welcomed. He polished an old wrench, its surface scarred by years of service. The wrench had saved countless lives and ships here. It would serve the memory of a civilization he'd never met. A lump formed in his throat as he realized he'd traded a death sentence for the second chance, a duty to honor ghosts he may never see. Rourke rose and activated the base's main calm ray, aligning its dish toward the void. "Let the universe know," he murmured. If anyone was out there, human or alien, the signal would beckon them. He watched as a tiny green light blinked on the display, signal strength at 20%. 30, 40. Alone, he might have believed he was dying. But in rebuilding this place, he discovered a spark he thought long extinguished. The galaxy might not need one more starship mechanic, but it did need someone to stand guard over the legacy of Karen Aal. And Rourke Draven was more than happy to answer the call. Rourke Draven awoke to a gentle thrum pulsing through the floor plates beneath his bed. The base had settled into a new rhythm, its heartbeat now in sync with the repaired bioreactor. He'd coaxed back to life through the alcove window. He saw the violet dawn spill over Draction 9's plains, the sky streaked with phosphorescent storms that danced like ghostly auroras. He swung his legs over the edge of the cot, each movement less stiff than the last, and rose to greet another day in this living relic. The labyrinth below his first order of business was the sublevel. Archives, a veritable maze he'd only begun to explore, descending the spiraling stair carved from living rock. Rourke's headlamp revealed walls scrawled with alien illustrations, vast ships gliding through nebulae, crystalline tendrils reaching toward distant suns, and beings of iridescent beauty tending to gardens that floated in zero gravity. The air here was cool and damp, carrying the faint hint of ozone and ancient spores. At the bottom, he found a sealed hatch emblazoned with the same looping script he'd seen in the reactor chamber. KHA, Renile, He pressed a gloved palm to the biometric scanner beside it. Nothing happened. Frustrated, he rigged a makeshift interface from his comlink cable and a handful of data probes. Sparks flew as the locked neural mesh resisted his hack, but persistence paid off. With a hiss, the hatch slid open to reveal tiers of crystalline databanks. Rows upon rows of translucent cylinders glowed softly, each a repository of the Carinal's accumulated knowledge. When Rourke touched one, it projected a delicate 3D hologram, a map of the Draxian expanse, with markers denoting worlds once seeded by Carinal biomes. Another cylinder displayed genetic schematics for plants that could thrive in radioactive soils. Yet another contained architectural blueprints for self-repairing habitats. It was the archive he dreamed of as a young mechanic, only on a scale that staggered the mind. He carefully extracted a databank, slotting it into his portable reader. The holo flower it unfolded in midair seemed alive, petals of light fracturing. Across the chamber, Rourke studied the glyphs translating at the edge of his vision. Let no knowledge perish. Let no world fall to silence. His breath caught. This creed had driven the Carinal's mission to scatter seeds of life across dying systems, to ensure that even catastrophe could not snuff out the spark of existence. A profound purpose lingered here, echoing through time, resurrecting. Biospheres merging from the archives, Rourke felt compelled to honor that creed. He returned to the hydroponic gardens on level 3, where metal planters once teemed with algae now lay choked under a year's worth of bioluminescent moss. With methodical care, he pruned overgrowth, calibrating nutrient flow through the roots and adjusting the light spectrum to mimic the Carinal's homeworld's gentle green glow from his supply kit. He sprinkled earth-born seeds, lentil sprouts, hardy ferns, desert cacti into vacant troughs. He added alien spores he'd found in a sealed biovault, iridescent spores that pulsed like living stars when hydrated. Each new sprout was a promise life not only restored, but diversified. As the plants responded, stretching leaves toward the grow lights, exuding fresh oxygen into the corridors, Rourke sensed a rebirth more profound than any mechanical overhaul. While tending the greenery, he heard a soft scuttling behind him. Turning, he caught sight of a small, insect-like drone, its carapace shimmering with bioluminescence. It hovered curiously, then darted away, leaving behind faint motes of glowing spores. Fascinated, Rourke realized these maintenance drones had been the base's caretaker's tiny custodians, programmed to nurture the living walls, repair microfractures, and cleanse the air. He resolved to revive their swarm, calling the caretakers back. In the reactor control room, Rourke located the drone command node, a sleek console nestled among power regulators. He wiped decades of dust from its touch interface, then initiated a power surge calibrated to jumpstart its neural rays. The node buzzed and clicked, and one by one, dozens of dormant drone pods along the wall flickered to life. The living coral housing them shimmered and cracked, disgorging the first generation of caretakers. The drones swarmed the gardens, their multifaceted eyes scanning plant health, trimming dead fronds with precision lasers, and depositing nutrient capsules where roots thirsted. Rourke watched, enthralled, as the gardens came alive under their ministrations. The moss retreated from metal beams, algae cleared from viewports, water recycled through biofilters that glowed faintly green. It was a ballet of restoration. Yet, with every success, Rourke felt a pang of wonder mixed with sorrow. The base had once been a bastion of interstellar hope, and now he alone had awakened it. The weight of that responsibility settled on his shoulders. Holo memorious that night, after the drones had finished their rounds, Rourke explored the central vault, a circular chamber where the Carinal had once convened to plan expeditions. At its heart stood a monolithic obelisk of polished crystal. He placed his palm against its cool surface. The obelisk reacted, veins of light tracing his fingertips as the chamber filled with 1,000 whispering voices. Soft, lilting chants in the alien tongue coalesced into English. Through his translator implant, witness the birth of new worlds. Carry our hope where shadows fall. Let life's chorus echo beyond the void. Holo projections erupted around the obelisk, fleets of seed ships drifting through cosmic mists, verdant planets blossoming under alien suns, civilizations rising from barren rock. For a moment, Rourke felt he was no longer alone, that he stood among architects of creation. Tears blurred his vision as ghosts of the past stretched across the chamber, offering him their legacy. He stumbled back, overcome, and pressed a finger to the obelisk's emergency light. The chamber dimmed, the voices faded. In the hush, only the hum of the bioreactor reminded him he was alive, breathing. Grounded in this lonely outpost. Storm on the horizon. Following morning, harsh violet clouds roiled across the sky, an electrical storm of unparalleled ferocity. Rourke watched from the main viewport as lightning arched like ivory daggers, striking the base's external shield generators. Alarms flared, and the reactor's therm turned jagged. He dashed to the generator array, where sparking conduits fanned out like lethal veins. The shield grid was dying. Without it, the storm's ionic winds would scour away the living walls, extinguish the hydroponics, even disrupt the living core. He yanked open a maintenance hatch and found the primary power regulator fused and fractured. Hands shaking, Rourke retrieved his spare regulator from his locker, a relic of his starship days. Sweat and bio-ooze from the living walls coated his gloves as he scrambled to splice the unit into place. Outside, a deafening roar told him time was short. With a final twist, the new regulator clamped into the grid. He slammed down the access panel and ran to the control console, praying. Seconds later, the shields flickered back online, a transparent dome rippling as electric storms smashed against it. Blue sparks cascaded harmlessly across the exterior. Inside, lights steadied, and the reactor's hum deepened. Rourke collapsed to one knee, chest heaving. He'd saved this place not for profit, not for fame, but because its cry for help echoed his own forgotten yearning. The storm raged outside, but within these walls, life held firm, a promise of return as the violet skies cleared and the storm's thunder faded beyond the shield. Rourke limped back to his quarters. Mud splattered his boots. Oil smeared his jacket. He peeled them off, every ache a testament to his determination. Before sleep claimed him, he scribbled in his worn logbook. Day 26, the base fights back. Tomorrow, I'll chart the upper corridors and tune the long-range beacon. If anyone out there hears it, human, alien, or wanderer, may they come in peace. He closed his eyes to the gentle pulse of the corridors, confident that the base and he had much more yet to discover. In reviving the ghosts of the past, Rourke had found a purpose greater than any he'd known. The legacy of Carnal was stirring, and he would answer its call. Rourke Draven awoke to the distant metallic echo of landing clamps engaging a grinding, deliberate sound that vibrated through the base's living hull. His first thought was alarm. Had another storm battered the shield? But the hum of the bioreactor remained steady, the garden's soft glow uninterrupted. He hurried to the central viewport. Below, a sleek vessel hovered, its hull rippling with iridescent patterns like the skin of a deep-sea creature. No human ship he'd ever seen could rival its elegance. Arrival of the Scouth landing bay doors slid open with an alien grace, folding back in undulating arcs rather than rigid panels. Rourke darted to the comm console, fingers dancing over glyph-marked controls. In seconds, the bay flooded with soft white light. He stepped onto the pad just as the Scout's hatch hissed and a figure emerged. She was tall nearly 2 meters with limbs lithe as jointed crystal. Her skin glowed pale lavender, veins of opal swirling beneath the surface. Silver filaments arched from her temples, converging into an intricate network around her skull. Like a living crown, her eyes were liquid mercury, reflective and unreadable. Rourke froze, toolbox hanging useless by his side. The visitor paused, scanning him through mirrored lenses. A weightless silence passed before she lifted a hand in greeting, a gesture both formal and curious. First contact greetings, she intoned in flawless common, her voice a melodic contralto that resonated in his chest. I am Xenia of the lineage of Carnal. I have returned. Rourke's throat tightened. His voice emerged rough. I'm Rourke Draven. I bought this base under the assumption it was abandoned. Xenia's lips curved in what might have been a smile. So I have been told. Yet you did not dismantle it. You nurtured its systems, awakened its caretakers. Why? He exhaled, meeting her gaze. I thought I was picking my final resting place. But then I found purpose in fixing what was broken. Her head tilted, the silver filaments capturing stray light. Purpose, the same we sought here. She stepped past him, her boots barely making a sound on the living floor. Come, show me what you have done. Clashing voices as they walked through the central hub. Rourke guided her past glowing hydroponics and humming reactors. He pointed out the rewired power conduits and the drone command node. Xenia observed each detail intently, never interrupting until they reached the archives hatch. These archives hold my people's legacy, she said softly, as though afraid he might shatter the words. Our hopes, our failures, our very souls. Rourke hesitated. I've only explored a fraction. I thought you'd want to do it yourself. Xenia's gaze flicked to the door. Your handiwork is impressive, yet some may see this as trespass. He bristled. I paid for this place, but I didn't intend to steal your history. If you want me gone, I'll leave. She studied him in the pale glow of biolights. No, you stayed. You cared. Perhaps, she paused, searching for the right word. Perhaps we both have stewardship here. The word stewardship echoed in his mind. Alien, yet fitting. He nodded slowly. I want to learn. Show me your vision, Xenia. Shared discoveries over the next standard cycle. Xenia guided Rourke deeper into the base's secrets. She taught him to interpret the glyphs on the obelisk, revealing that it was a conduit for neuronal's communion, a living archive that could project ancestral memories directly into the mind. Together, they activated it, and Rourke felt tendrils of thought weave through his consciousness, visions of seed ships gliding past gas giants, of alien children playing beneath bioluminescent trees, of the Carinal's final ritual as their civilization fractured across dimensions. When the projections subsided, Rourke gasped. I saw them, felt their sorrow. Xenia placed a gentle hand on his arm. You carry their memories now. You understand why the base must live. He brushed a stray lock of hair from his forehead. And I understand why I'm here. Bridging. World Xenia introduced him to the finer points of Carinal bioengineering. In the reconstruction labs, she demonstrated how living walls could adapt to new species, molding pore structures to filter toxins, adjusting bioluminescent spectra to soothe occupants. Rourke proposed integrating human tech sensor rays from his old starships to enhance environmental monitoring. She considered this brow-furrowing integration. She mused. Our legacy should evolve, not remain static. So they melded human circuitry with alien biowalls, silver tracers looping through fungus-like veins, data nodes grafted onto living coral scaffolds. When the system rebooted, the walls pulsed with a hybrid glow, earth green strands weaving through lavender hues. The effect was breathtaking, a tapestry of two civilizations woven into one. As they worked side by side, conversation blossomed. Xenia spoke of her journey across the expanse in search of the base, of starfaring pilgrimages to lost outposts, of her burden as the last living heir of Carinal. Rourke confessed his regrets, the family he'd drifted from, the ships he'd watched disintegrate in cosmic storms, the days he'd wasted tending bar rather than engines. In the hum of shared purpose, they found common ground, two souls seeking redemption through restoration. Conflict of duty, yet not everything was harmony. One evening, while reviewing the holo archives, Xenia paused over a fragment depicting Carinal emissaries in negotiation with human diplomats. Centuries ago, they offered alliance, she said, voice tight. But your people ignored it. Rourke frowned. Humanity was fractured, then wars, corporate feuds, xenophobia. We weren't ready for peace. Xenia's eyes flashed. Readiness does not excuse arrogance. He stood. We survive by imperfection, by trial and error. She shook her head. I once believed so. But the Carinal chose to learn from others, to adapt. You reject adaptation until forced. Her words stung. He realized she spoke of more than history, they spoke of themselves. Was he too reluctant to change? Had he become as stubborn as the reactor cores he once fixed? Rourke's voice softened. I changed. Look at this place. Together, we're making something new. Xenia sighed, the luminescent filaments around her temples dimming. Perhaps. She paused, then extended her hand. I owe you gratitude, Rourke Draven. Without you, this legacy would die. He took her hand, warmth passing between them. Despite the alien textures, and I owe you hope, heart of the obelisk to seal their pact, Xenia led Rourke to the heart of the obelisk chamber, where the crystal monolith towered. She activated a secondary interface, causing the obelisk's inner core to bloom, tendrils of light spiraling outward. Together, they placed palms on its facets. The living archive awakened, and Rourke felt a surge of ancestral energy. Visions cascaded, worlds reborn, species rekindled, civilizations forging alliances across the stars. The obelisk spoke in pulses of light, weaving a tapestry of potential. Futures where humanity and Caranal stood as partners. In that nexus, Rourke glimpsed himself not as a dying mechanic, but as a guardian bridging epochs. When the communion ended, the chamber was silent save for the obelisk's steady glow. Xenia's voice, soft as a whisper, broke the hush. The legacy chooses its stewards. Rourke nodded. Heart pounding. Then let our stewardship begin. A promise inked in light, they emerged into the corridor, hands still tingling from shared energy. Outside, the twin suns of Draction 9 drenched the landscape in violet gold. The repaired shield shimmered overhead, a testament to their unity. Xenia turned to Rourke, eyes bright. We will send a message, a beacon forged from both our technologies. Let all know the Caranal legacy endures, and that humanity walks beside us. He smiled, feeling a new resolve burn in his chest. Let's make sure they hear it. As they hurried to the communications array, the base itself seemed to hum with approval. Grafted beams and living walls pulsed in tandem. Drones flitted along the corridors as if celebrating, and the garden's leaves rustled in an invisible breeze. Together, Rourke and Xenia set the beacon's coordinates, calibrated frequencies, and launched a prism of light into the void, a message in living code that would guide lost travelers to this sanctuary. In the alien glow of the control room, they stood shoulder to shoulder, to unlikely custodians of a legacy reborn. And in that moment, Rourke Draven knew his journey had only just begun. Rourke Draven stood at the edge of the grand balcony, the two suns of Draction 9 rising like molten jewels over the violet plains. The shield overhead glinted as it repelled the last wisps of the night's electrical storm, and the living walls behind him pulsed in a gentle, welcoming rhythm. Today would mark the beginning of something far greater than solitude. It would mark the birth of an alliance between two civilizations. One. The gathering of travelers long-range sensors had detected dozens of vessels converging on the base's newly lit legacy beacon. Small traders, scientific scouts, even an exploratory frigate from the United Earth Coalition all followed the prism-like signal that Xenia and Rourke had launched into the void. As the first ship slipped through the shielded gate, Rourke's heart pounded. These were human faces, dusted with the grime and wear of hard-ended journeys, but their eyes shone with wonder. He descended the spiral stair with Xenia at his side. In the vast atrium, clusters of humans and Caranal drones mingled in curious silence. The drones flitted above, projecting bioluminescent patterns that danced across the visitors' helmets. Scientists lifted recording devices, captains strode forward to scan datapads, and children peered at the living walls in open-mouthed awe. Among them, standing hesitantly by the entrance, was Jace Draven, Rourke's son, a tall young man with more than a passing resemblance to his father's. Steel-tough jaw and ink-black hair, Jace wore the livery of an interstellar cartographer. He held a translator unit in one hand and a data tablet in the other, fingers trembling as he watched Rourke approach. Point 2. Reunion under alien skis-time seemed to stop as father and son closed the gap. Between them, the crowd hushed, even the drones hovered in respectful stillness. Rourke's throat tightened against a swell of emotion. He extended his hand, but Jace simply launched himself into his arms, resting his head on Rourke's shoulder as years of silence and distance met in a single embrace. "I thought you were dead," Jace whispered, voice choked. Rourke pulled back, eyes wet. "I thought I was, too." He smiled, ragged but luminous. "But I found life here so I could find you." They stood for a long moment beneath the twin suns, and around them the gathered travelers shared tentative nods of solidarity. Xenia slipped Rourke's daughter-like hand into his, her silver mercury eyes soft with understanding. 3. Forging Alliance's first formal meeting convened in the Holo Council chamber, where the obelisk stood surrounded by translated archives. On one side sat Xenia, and the surviving Caranal caretakers on the other, representatives of the United Earth Coalition, independent traders, and the Galactic Research Collective. Rourke presided alongside Xenia, his presence a testament to human-alien cooperation. Xenia unfurled the mission's core doctrine: to safeguard knowledge, to seed hope. She spoke of the Caranal's millennia-long journey, of their dream to heal dying worlds. Then Rourke rose, voice steady. We come not to claim dominion over this legacy, but to honor it by sharing what we learn, by welcoming all travelers into its embrace, and by forging a future where no civilization need fear extinction. Murmurs of approval rippled through the chamber. Human diplomats pledged resources for joint research into biointegration tech. Traders offered to ferry supplies so the base could become a hub for exploration into the Draxian expanse. Scientists volunteered to catalog and distribute Caranal. Archival databanks in the soft glow of the living walls. A new council was born, the Interstellar Stewardship Pact, co-chaired by Rourke and Xenia.4. Legacy restored over the next solar cycle. The base transformed from a quiet refuge into a bustling nexus. Corridors once echoing only with the hum of the bioreactor now resonated with the cadences of countless languages. Hydroponic bays overflowed with both alien flora and human cultivars, creating hybrid ecosystems that glowed like jeweled tapestries. Drone swarms, guided by human engineers, extended their care to nearby planetfall expeditions, jump-starting biospheres ravaged by past exploitation. Rourke oversaw the integration of refurbished starship sensors into the living walls, turning them into a galaxy-spanning antenna network. Through it, the base transmitted environmental data to terraforming projects, provided emergency life support protocols to stricken colonies, and cataloged genetic samples for preservation. He walked those corridors with the same reverence he once reserved for engine rooms, but here every bolt and membrane spoke of life reborn. Jace, working alongside Xenia's technomancers, charted the unrecorded reaches of the expanse. Each new world he mapped a cratered moon, a floating archipelago of rock. An ocean planet ringed by phosphorescent plankton was added to the Caranal charts and shared with the galactic community. 5. The Heart's Awakening in Evening. Under a lavender dusk, Rourke returned to the obelisk chamber alone. He placed a hand upon the crystal monolith, its surface warm from a cycle of use. The obelisk lit from within, its tendrils of light weaving around his palm. He closed his eyes and let the ancestral memories flow, the joy of a world healed, the laughter of children under new suns, the solidarity of disparate species uniting in hope. At the climax of the vision, he felt the presence of Xenia beside him. Opening his eyes, he found her silhouette outlined by the obelisk's glow. "You carry more than memories," she said softly. "You carry their hearts." Rourke nodded. "I carry mine, too." He looked back at the chamber where the holo projection of a newborn planet turned slowly in the air. "We all do." 6. A vow across the stars. Next morning, as Rourke and Xenia addressed the assembled crew on the balcony, he felt the weight of his promise settle into his bones. He raised a hand to the crowd. "Today, we stand at the threshold of a new age. We vow to protect knowledge, heal worlds, and forge bonds that transcend species. We vow that no legacy, no matter how ancient, will ever again be left to vanish." In silence, thunderous applause broke out, carried on the violet wind across the plains. Traders saluted, scientists cheered, drones released flares of bioluminescence in celebration. In that moment, Rourke Draven, the retired mechanic, became Rourke Draven, guardian of the legacy. He turned to Xenia, her crown of silver filaments sparkling in the dawn. "Shall we show them the way?" She smiled, eyes like liquid starlight. Together, and as the twin suns climbed to greet the day, the base pulsed with life, hope, and the promise of unity, a beacon for all who dared to dream across the cosmic expanse.